ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Wow, thank you so much. I love the enthusiasm. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so, all right, here's the thing. I'm so fired to be here because whenever I fly into an event, I know I'm going to hang out with a bunch of winners and champions because they don't fly me around unless I get to hang out with a bunch of superstars. So I know I'm in a room of greatness right now, and I am excited to be here. And what a wonderful video introduction there by Stuart, because when I met him out back, he had a whole different intro he's going to do. He said, "Hey, Travis, I've been thinking about this." I said, "Okay, what are you thinking about?" He goes, "I got an introduction I want to do." I said, "Lay it on me." He said, "I'm going to go out there and say, what do you call a guy with no arms and legs in the ocean?" Bob. And I said, "Well, I've heard that one before." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm going to say, what do you call a guy with no arms and legs on the wall?" Art. There it is. I was like, "No, I've heard that one too." He goes, "On a doorstep mat." He goes, "Then I'm going to say, here today, Travis Mills." Do you get the joke? And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." No, I'm kidding. I told him he should, but he didn't want to. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. I just flew in. I'm on a 10-day road trip. I just flew in from Vegas, and boy, are my arms tired. No, look, I'm excited to be here, but in truth, with the bright lights, this wonderful stage, the great hotel, and being able to speak to the Crown Council right here, all of you, over 1,000 people, I am a little bit nervous, if I can be honest and open up about that. I'm just up here going like, I hope I don't bomb this. No, because last time, what happened? Oh, yeah, you're getting it. All right, cool. So, let's get underway. Here's the thing. I think it's important that right up front, you know the two things about me that are like most important to me. Number one thing about me I want you to know is that I'm awesome. And the second thing is that I'm actually humble. So, I'm awesome, but then I'm humble about it. And we should be friends, right? I want to tell you something that you can take home, tell your friends and family, like, "Oh my gosh, I heard a speaker today. We became friends. He even told us something personal about himself." So I'm going to open up with one of my biggest things. I don't wash my hands after I use the bathroom. I don't. I mean, I wash my hand, just not my hands. It doesn't even hurt. You think it would, but it doesn't. The first time it fell off, it did, but not now. Now it's like every day. No, I think telling jokes really helps. I think it helps disarm the situation, you know. Knee slapper, if you got them, I know, but like I don't. All right, and all right, ladies and gentlemen, just for all the single ladies in the room, I'm married, so I'm sorry, but let's get underway, okay? So on the screen now, you're going to see my wonderful wife, Kelsey. And everything in my life in this picture is going perfect. I just got promoted to staff sergeant. My wife and I had bought a house recently, and we just had our daughter. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, I have the best wife in the world. No offense to anybody that's married. You're supposed to think your spouse is number one, and I hope that you do. But here's how I know that my wife is the absolute best. You see, when our daughter was born, 14 hours of labor. In truth, I fell asleep for most of it because I wasn't doing much, and I was tired. But when I woke up and our daughter was born, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna pick for her name?" We had it narrowed down to Madison or Avery. And my wife looked at me with a heavy sigh and a little bit of disgust, and she's like, "Ugh, we got to name her Chloe Lynn, don't we?" And I said, "No, we don't have to. What makes you think that?" And she said, "Well, you're an idiot, and you already have her ex-girlfriend's name tattooed on your arm." So we named her Chloe Lynn after my ex-girlfriend to make the tattoo make sense. That's not true. No. I'm not a Marine. I'm not that dumb. Yeah. I know the Marines are out there going like, "I don't get the joke." Not surprised. Here's the thing. So, no. My ex-girlfriend's a terrible person. We're going to talk about her later, actually. She's awful. But here's the thing. Everything in this picture, or these pictures, my life's going great. But let's back it up a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm from a very small town. Now, I know this is a national conference, so is anybody here from Ohio? So like OH? Sucks, I'm from Michigan. And I don't care you're national champions. We still beat you in your face. So I'm from Michigan. On the top left of your screen, you will see my mom and dad's favorite day in their whole entire lives. Ladies and gentlemen, that is April 14th, 1987, when their favorite child was born. And just like Stuart and I were talking, we have a lot in common, right? We're both middle children. Here's what happened. My parents had my sister first, and the doctor said, it's a girl. And my mom said, crap. And my dad said, that's not what we wanted. Back to the drawing board they went. Then they had me. And when I was born, they looked at me, and they were so overcome with emotion, they couldn't even hold me for the first little bit. But that's okay, because the doctors put orange stuff on my forehead and held me to the ceiling. And they played the circle of life when I was born. And honestly, for the first, I think, 10 minutes, I thought my name was perfection, because that's all they were saying. Then my parents got a little cocky on their winning streak, and they thought they could duplicate me. And they had my brother, and they saw him, they're like, oof. They almost named him Daisy for like, whoops-a-daisy. That did not go as planned. But here's the thing. Growing up from a small town, I played a lot of sports. Football, basketball, baseball, powerlifting, you probably can tell. I even still hold a junior high shot put record. Just want you to know. And when I made it to varsity, I was a starting catcher on the varsity freshman year. I was a captain of the football, baseball, and basketball teams. And like a lot of you in this, not a lot, actually looking around, like some of you in this room, like where's Dr. Chris Hammond? Me and Dr. Chris have so much in common. We're both good looking. We both have doctorates. I have 4. They're honorary, but I got them. And we both peaked in high school. And you just know, like when I met Chris, I was like, I get it. But here's the thing, though. In football, it's pretty good. So I was a linebacker, and I'd make tackles, and I'd throw them to the ground, and I'd get in their face, and I'd say things like, your mom and dad never wanted you, or something like that, just to get inside their head. And then I would also run the touchdowns. You think I'd show a video of me getting tackled? No way. Touchdown Travis Mills, glory days. Oh my gosh, right, Chris? I'm telling you what, high school was good to me. I had a hairline, no waistline. Ladies and gentlemen, I even had arms and legs. I know. I miss it. So, high school ended. And I was going to go to college. Everybody's like, go to college. So I went to college. I went to a small community college, and I chose to play football. I had offers for baseball and football, and I chose to play football. And I played this brand new position. You see, in high school, I was a kicker, the punter, the fullback, the linebacker. And then in college, I played the sideline. And I was good at it because I was there all season. So, pretty big deal. I was redshirted, whatever. So, anyways, when I was at school, college, was going okay. I didn't really care for it. But the season was coming to an end for football. We won the national championship for the junior college league that year. And it was coming to an end. And when I was in class one day, the baseball coach for the college came and pulled me out of class. He goes, hey, Travis, I got your scouting report. I was an all-state catcher and all this stuff. And he goes, my starting catcher broke his shoulder and my backup transferred. So I have a starting spot for you if you want it on my baseball team. And I'm like, Coach, that's amazing. I'll let you know tomorrow what I can do. So I went back to my apartment where I lived by myself, 2.5 hours away from my hometown. And I called my girlfriend back home, and I was like, oh, my gosh, you're never going to guess what happened. And she's like, what? What happened today? I said, the baseball coach asked me to play baseball. He says he has a starting spot for me on his team. And she's like, that's amazing. And then she goes, but I thought you were going to move home for me. And I was like, why would I do that? And then she said, well, because I love you. And I went, oh, right. That makes sense. So I went to that coach the next day. I said, Coach, I can't play for you. My girlfriend says she loves me. I got to move home for her. And he looked at me and he said, that's stupid. And I looked at him and I said, you're stupid. And I moved home. And 2 weeks later, by complete accident, I met her other boyfriend, Colin. So I joined the military because of that. And when I look back at my life, I was like, how did I get blown up and lose my arms and legs? Like, it's her fault. Yeah, I'm totally over it. I don't hold a grudge at all. I will say, though, if she ever, fell down a well, oh well. So In all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, college wasn't my thing. I tried to go to a college back home, went for half the semester, and decided I needed to change it up a bit. So then I started talking to recruiting stations, and I narrowed it down between the Army and the Marines. And I walked in this Marine recruiter, and this 6'4" behemoth, bald-headed, barrel-chested, stands up from his desk. He's like, "You want to be a Marine?" And I'm like, "I don't know." "Tell me about it, bro." He didn't want to be called bro, I'll tell you that much. And he told me about it, gave me a spiel, and I was like, okay. So I went across the hall to the Army, and I walked in. The guy's like, "You want to be in the Army, bro?" I was like, "Dude, maybe. Tell me about it." He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a $24,000 signing bonus if you sign up." And I'm like, "What?" Hold that thought, I'm no dummy. I walked back to that Marine, and I said, "Hey, what's your signing bonus?" He stands up again, puffs his chest out, and he goes, "Honor, duty, respect." I was like, "Cool." I got that next door. I saw the poster. I'm talking about cash money. He's like, "There's no money here." And I was like, "What idiot would join that branch of service?" Marines. So, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so I joined the Army, $24,000 signing bonus. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know where that money's at today? Me neither. But anyways, I went to basic training at Fort Benning. I got through that. Then I went to airborne school, learned how to jump out of airplanes. And then I made the Fort Bragg home of the 82nd Airborne Division. When I got to Fort Bragg, within 6 months, we geared up and deployed to Afghanistan for a 15-month tour. And when I was over there, I was actually a personal security attachment for a colonel. And it was like the coolest job. At 19 years old, the Army was like, "Hey, you're 19, but you're infantry. We're going to have you have your own truck and all your equipment. So we need you to sign for $6 million worth of equipment." And I'm like, "No problem. I got this." So I would go out on patrols with the colonel. He would go do his work in the city with the governor of Coast Province, and we'd come back, and I'd lift weights 3 hours a day. I found these supplements in Germany to like mend my broken heart from that she-devil that I'm totally over. And these supplements were great, but I was working out 3 hours a day. I grew from like 6'3", 250 pounds to 6'3", 275, and a lot of protein. But while I was over there in my truck, the medic rode with me. His name was Josh Buck. He's actually from Frisco, Texas. And Josh Buck would go with me, and we'd hang out every day. We'd have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I knew everything about this guy, right? Married. He worked on a ranch growing up here. And he had a daughter on the way. He was going home in late September for his daughter to be born. And he went home. And while he was at home, ladies and gentlemen, I got a MySpace friend request. Some of you don't know what that is, but others do. So I get a MySpace friend request, and this picture pops up. And I'm like, I do not know her. This is a dating site for sure. As soon as it pops up, Craig, I'm telling you what, the tech guy in the back, my right hand, he's messing up here. I'm Ron Burgundy? I know, right? So this picture pops up, and I'm like, I don't know her. That's a spam thing. That's just a dating site. And I go to hit decline, but before I hit decline on the friend request, I realized that's the same last name as my medic. And I did a little Sherlock Holmes-style super sleuth detective work, and I found out my medic told us everything about himself, but one key factor. He had an 18-year-old sister in college. He didn't tell us at all. Can you believe the nerve of that man? I know. And you think you know somebody. So I'm at a real crossroads in life, real conundrum. Do I hit accept and upset my medic, or hit decline and respect his friendship? So I hit accept. And there's like one thing in life I'm like super good at. It's called antagonizing. I'll tell you how good I am. When I got blown up, my mom was by my bedside about a week or 2 weeks after I got blown up. And I said, "Mom, why'd this happen?" And she goes, "Oh, honey, karma." So, she didn't say it, but I think she thought it. So I hit accept. Me and this lovely young lady from Frisco, going to Collin County Community College, just down the road from here, start chit-chatting back and forth. And we decide, hey, we're really enjoying this. We should probably hang out. So I'm like, hey, I'm from Michigan. You're in Texas. I get 18 days of R&R. Where do you want to come to Michigan, or should maybe I come to Texas? She goes, I don't know. What do you want to do? I said, I don't know. So the most logical thing that we could think of was we should probably book a week-long trip to Cozumel, Mexico. So we did that. And I flew in to pick her up. And I get to her mom and dad's house, and I knock on the door, and her dad answers the door, and he's looking up at me. His knees start to shake a little bit and tremble. He's like, please don't hurt me, sir. And I was like, I'm not going to hurt you, buddy. And I gave him a noogie, so he knew we were friends. And then he thanked me. He's like, thank you, sir. And I said, now get out of here, and smacked him on the butt. Pow! And away he went. It might not have went that way exactly, but it's something like that. But we went to Mexico for a week, had a great time, back to Michigan for a week, and then I had to go back to Afghanistan. So she flew back to Dallas, I flew to Atlanta. I got held up for the night, though. So I flew her back from from Dallas to Atlanta. And you guys are smart people. You know where $24,000 actually was going. And the next day at the airport, we're saying our goodbyes, and she's got these crocodile tears just streaming down her face. Real ugly cry you don't want to look at, but you have to because you're a gentleman. You know the one. In between her sobs and her sighs, she's like, I love you. And I'm like, I'm not losing my girlfriend I met 2 weeks ago, so I throw it back out there. I love you too. That's what you say in that situation. And then she says, I want to marry you. And I'm like, that can't hurt. I'm going back to Afghanistan. So I'm like, I want to marry you too. Oh, that was the right thing to say because those tears dried up instantly. Simultaneously, 3 birds in the Atlanta airport chirped the most beautiful song you've ever heard. 2 rainbows across the sky, and a unicorn ran out of the terminal. It was majestic. So I'm strutting my stuff back to my airplane, feeling pretty good about that verbal jujitsu, I fly back to Afghanistan. 3 days later, I get to my base finally. I give her a phone call. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's all wound right up. She goes, oh my gosh, Travis, guess what? And I'm like, I'm on an airplane, I don't know what. And she said, well, the wedding's planned. And I went, what? A great thing to tell me. That makes sense per our last conversation. So I had to call her dad to make sure he's cool with it. He's like, yeah, no problem. You're awesome. I'm like, thanks, buddy. We air 5 through the phone. I go to Zales.com, buy her a ring, because I wasn't thinking this, And then 3 months later, I get back from Afghanistan. We have our wedding, and then we get an apartment at Fort Bragg. And we get to have a whole year of being newlyweds. And ladies and gentlemen, we got a dog. And I take every chance I get to brag about my dog. And people are always like, hey, you want a service dog? And I'm like, no, I got a dog. And then they're like, yeah, but don't you want a dog that listens? And I take offense to that. I'm like, my dog listens? And I show my dog's tricks off. He's got a very unique name for a lab. It's Buddy. And I say, watch this. And I look at my dog and say, Buddy, sit when you want. No, he eventually does. He starts barking. I'm like, stop barking when you feel like it. And we live in Maine. My wife and I live in Maine, which I know is kind of weird, but she grew up in Maine until she was 11, so it makes sense now to you. And we live in Maine, and we live on 20 acres, and he used to walk off into the woods, and I have to, call him, and he just keep walking and ignore me because I wasn't going to chase him. So people wonder how I, relieve stress if I get stressed out. And the truth is I put an invisible fence in, and I just throw that ball over the fence. I'm kidding. I can't throw. I got a pitching machine. So anyways, now we get the apartment and the dog. Everything's going great. And then my unit gets orders to go back to Afghanistan for a year. So I go back to Afghanistan for a year. And while I'm on that deployment, it was a whole different scenario. That deployment, we lived in the middle of nowhere. We were taking compounds from the Taliban, and they would fly us in, and we'd take over an area, and then they'd fly us to another area. I took 4 showers in 1 year that year, not by choice, just how we were living. But on that deployment, I got to call home about every week or 2 weeks. And towards the end of my deployment, I gave my wife a phone call. And I said, hey, what's going on? And she was, oh my gosh, guess what? And she was all wound up again. And I was like, red flag. Last time, I got married, didn't see that coming. And I said, I don't know what. And she said, well, I bought a house today. And I was like, cool, but you're in college with no income. How did you buy a house today? And she said, well, do you remember that power of attorney that you signed? And I said, you mean for banking? And she goes, no, it's for everything. And actually, you bought a house today. Now, you see, ladies and gentlemen, the military was a great career for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought 20 years was at least, what I was going to do. And on that deployment, I got the chance to re-enlist. When I re-enlisted, I got what they call stabilization. So I had at least a year at Fort Bragg. So my wife and I went out. We found a house in the same neighborhood as my brother-in-law and his wife and family, and we bought a house. And 4 months after I got back, my wife and I found out we were going to have a baby. And my daughter was born, 9 months later in September of 2011. And that's where the story really started today. Everything was going my way. My daughter, was born. We had bought our house. And the picture of my daughter in her pink outfit there is the day I got promoted to staff sergeant. And I had a really cool job. Out of 40 guys in my platoon at 24 years old, I was the third highest ranking non-commissioned officer. I was in charge of the weapons squad, which meant I was in charge of the two biggest guns in the battlefield, and we trained and trained and trained, and we were one of the best out there. And then my unit got orders to go back to Afghanistan for a third time. But the big army gave me orders to Fort Hood, Texas. And their justification was, I have over 2 years of combat experience in a short amount of time. I can sit this one out, and they're building a new brigade, and they want combat non-commissioned officers with experience to help build this brigade up. So they said, you can sit this one out. You don't have to go. And that sounds great in theory, but the military is a brotherhood. I got guys from all across our wonderful nation that served under me, that came to my house for barbecues. I knew their spouses. I knew their kids. And they looked up to me, and I was their boss. And I thought, there's no way that they can go without me. My wife understood it. It was a 9-month deployment, going to be a quick hit. And in truth, I had to go. So my wife, we talked about it. She approved it, said, yeah, you got to go. And I got my orders changed so I could go to Afghanistan. I went to my sergeant major and said, hey, if I got to go to Fort Hood, I will, but if I can get the chance to go with my guys, I'd rather go with my guys. And he goes, nope, I understand that. Canceled my orders, and I went overseas for a third time in February of 2012. My daughter was 4 months old when I gave her a kiss goodbye. And when I got to Afghanistan, we were going out for the very first time, first patrol, and day one, we got in the biggest firefight I had ever been in. It was a 7-hour firefight. We had guys going across a dry riverbed. They got pinned down with RPGs and mortars and AK-47s, and all of a sudden, my guns were ripping up on the other side of the riverbank, keeping everyone's head down on the Taliban side, and I had to go down and grab a guy out and pull him out of the crossfire, and I was the last one on the objective, throwing a smoke grenade with the forward observer for the Kiowas to come in, and that was day one. Very hot and intense zone. Day two, we got another big firefight. Day three was the same. It was the most action I had seen, and it was 2012. But over the course of a month, we had battled the Taliban, taken compounds. They woke up with us in their area quite a bit, and we were pushing them back, and it loosened up a little bit. But on April 10th of 2012, we got a phone call from a village elder asking for some help in the village, which is pretty common. We were building schools, digging wells for fresh drinking water. We were giving little girls a chance to get educated. We were doing good, and our whole mission was to separate the Taliban from the population and show the population there's life outside of being ruled by a terror group. So we get a phone call, and he asked for help, and we said, yeah, no problem. So on April 10th of 2012, we went on patrol like normal. We had a minesweeper that would always sweep the ground, not once but twice, and we marked it safe. I took my backpack off, a 120-pound backpack hit the ground and landed on top of a roadside bomb that we missed. And when that bomb went off, it tore my right arm, right leg off instantly. I was thrown on the left side of my face, and I rolled over my back, and I saw the aftermath. My right side was completely gone, disintegrated, never found. My left leg was blown out at the knee, and I still had muscle and tendon holding it on, but nothing much more than that. And my left arm was blown out at the wrist, but I still had used my thumb, index, and middle finger. So as I was laying on the ground and I rolled over and I saw the aftermath of what happened, within seconds, my medic, Dan, was on my right side putting tourniquets. And my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Hambright, was on my left side putting tourniquets as fast as they could. And I had two guys yelling for the medic, Brandon and Ryan, because they got hit too. And I looked at my medic, Dan, and I said, hey, Dan, you're not going to save me. Don't worry about it. Go save my guys. It'll be over quick. It's okay. And it's not that I was suicidal or wanting to die. It was that in my line of work, I've seen guys die for what I thought was a lot less injury. So don't waste your time on me. Go save my guys. And he ignored me and kept working on me. And in my head, the only thing I kept seeing was movie Saving Private Ryan. Because there's a scene when a medic in the movie gets shot in the stomach. And as he realizes that it's a fatal shot and he's going to die, he starts to beg for his mom and beg for his life. And I told myself, no matter what happens to me, my guy's last image of me was not going to be that. Their last thoughts was not going to, last memories of me was going to be me yelling for my mom or yelling for my life or begging to live, because I was the guy that exuded confidence, led from the front, and never showed fear. And that was the persona that I wanted them to know and have of me. So I said, don't worry about it, you're not going to save me. He ignored me. And within, that time frame of him ignoring me and keep working on me, I reached out to my trucker mic on my chest, and I called my lieutenant with my thumb and index finger that were still working. And I said, hey, 6, this is 4. I got guys injured. I need your medic with mine. So he sent Doc Voice over, and Doc Voice comes and works on Brandon and Ryan. Then he worked on me. They got a sternum IV in me at that point. And within 10 minutes of that, the helicopter showed up. And they put me on a helicopter, and they flew me, Brandon, and Ryan to the hospital. And as they were taking me down the hallway to the operating room, I kept trying to sit up. I'd get to my left elbow, and I'd go throw my body forward to sit up all the way, and a nurse would push me down. And the third time she pushed me down, I looked at that nurse, and I said, hey, quit touching me, leave me alone. This is all a big mistake. I just got to get back to my guys. I need to get my feet back underneath me. I have to go. And then the nurse looked at me and said, Sergeant Mills, I don't know how you're still awake right now, but you need to go to sleep. And then I watched her start pushing fluids through the sternum IV to knock me out. And that's when it clicked, like, I might never wake up again. And I looked at that nurse, and I said, my little girl, am I ever going to see her again? Because my daughter was only 6 months old at the time, and I didn't know if I was going to see her. And then I faded out. That's the last thing I said. And then 9 doctors and 7 nurses worked on me for 14 hours straight. 2 nurses, like you see on TV, took turns pumping air in and out of my lungs for 9 hours. And I was actually given so much blood that day that they ran out of A positive and universal blood in the blood bank, so the doctors and nurses were giving me blood from their veins as they worked on me. And they did a mass call over the whole entire Kandahar airfield and said, if you have A positive universal blood, get to the doors of the hospital. And they took their blood to keep me alive. For 14 hours, they worked on me, and when it was all said and done, I was a triple amputee. My right arm was gone and both legs. And while this was all happening, my brother-in-law was about 50 miles away at a different base, and they called and said, hey, Travis got hit today. He's probably going to die. We got to fly you in. So they flew Josh in, and his job was to escort my body home if I died, to my family and to his sister. I planned my funeral 3 times. Weirdest thing you got to do in the military. It's called a blue book in the Army. They ask you, where you want to be buried, what ceremony you want to have, what kind of music plays. But the last question is, who escorts your body home? So Josh and I always put each other. So they flew Josh in for that reason. And even though I was out of surgery and stable, they weren't sure if I was going to make it. 2 days after that, on April 12th, they flew us to Bagram, Afghanistan. And they took me in for a washout, and they realized the skin on my left hand had necrotized. So since it died, they cut my left hand off, and I became a quadruple amputee. And 2 days after that, on the 14th of April, they flew us to Launchtool, Germany, and they let me wake up from my medical sedation for the very first time. When I finally came to in the room, the only person that was there was my brother-in-law. And I looked over at him, he looked at me, and we locked eyes. And I looked at him, and I said, hey, my soldiers, like, how are my soldiers? And he told me, Ryan's here with us in Launchtool, and Brandon's back in Kandahar. You took most of the blast, but they're going to be okay. I said, all right. And I said, hey, Josh, am I paralyzed? And he said, no. And I looked at him and said, hey, like, you don't got to lie to me, man. Like, you can tell me the truth. I can take it. Like, I can't feel my fingers and toes. Like, am I paralyzed? He said, hey, you're not paralyzed, but you don't have them anymore. Just told me straight, didn't sugarcoat it, didn't know how else to tell me, so he just let me know. And the only thing I said was, oh. And then for 3 hours, I ignored everybody, to be honest with you. You see, I didn't want to have a conversation when the doctors and nurses were asking me questions. I didn't want to talk to Josh anymore, and he was telling me what was going on back home, what people were saying and wondering. Because in my head, I had my own questions. Am I a bad person? Does God hate me? What did I do wrong in life to deserve this? Bigger question was, how can I still be a husband and a father? And the thing that swirled around the most is, why didn't I just die? Like, how is this better for anybody? And finally, after 3 hours of those questions swirling around, Josh finally chimes in and said, hey, man, I'm not going to pretend like I know what you're going through, but you got to call your wife and your parents. I said, yeah, you're right. So he called up Kelsey, and when I talked to her, I didn't say much. I said, hey, what's up? I'm fine. Love you. Bye. I didn't want to have a conversation. I wasn't ready for that. My parents, about the same conversation happened, but I just remember I apologized profusely that I was so embarrassed that I let them down and that the Taliban got me, and it should never happen, and I'm so sorry. But before my mom and dad hung the phone up, my mom yelled through the phone, hey, Travis, happy birthday, because it was my 25th birthday that day. 3 days after that, I made it back to Walter Reed, and as they took me off the truck that brought me from Andrews Air Force Base and pushed me towards the hospital, Kelsey was there. My wife came running out with our daughter, Chloe, on her hip, and she came over to greet me, and as soon as she got close, there was a sea of doctors and nurses around me, and one of the staff members stopped her and said, "Mrs. Mills, your husband's right leg is ripped open on the flight. His suture split, and we have to cut 2 inches off his right leg, or he's going to bleed out and die. But we need you to approve the surgery because now you are in charge of the medical care. So we need you to sign this paperwork for us to do the surgery." And that's a lot for her to take. Last time she saw me, I was 6'3", 250 pounds. And now they're telling her they have to cut my leg even higher. So she freaks out a little bit, like I think we all would. Doesn't really know what to do, almost faints. And I just yell through the crowd of doctors and nurses, "It's fine, just sign it. Just sign the paperwork, Kelsey, it's okay." So she signs it, and they take me into surgery. On the 18th, she gets to come in and see me for the first time, and we're talking. We get our pleasantries out of the way. And ladies and gentlemen, I was a broken man at the time. I said, "I've been thinking about this, Kelsey. You don't have to do this. You can take the house, my car, sell it, your car, obviously, whatever you want to do with it. Any money we have saved up is yours. Not that it's a lot. And financially, whatever I have for the rest of my life will be for you and Chloe. But this isn't what I promised you when we got married. This isn't life I want for you, and you should take what we have and you should go." She didn't even bat an eyelash. She's like, no, we're gonna get through this together. It's okay. We can make it through anything. And that's impressive because she's 23, and that's a lot of weight on her shoulders. And you sit there and you wonder, like, how was she so calm and collected, and how was she okay with everything and so strong? And then you realize she really just wanted handicap parking, you know? So you guys can probably tell I don't like to be too serious all the time. But here's the thing. So she says, we're going to get through this together. So we have to come up with a plan how we're going to do it. Well, I had to find my motivation. My motivation came from my wonderful wife saying that, and my daughter, Chloe. My daughter, Chloe, and I are best friends. To this day, best friends. She's 13. She's awesome. But you see, my daughter came in the room, laid on my chest. I thought she was going to scream and cry and be so afraid of me. I mean, I had wound vac machines on my legs. I had PICC line coming out of my neck. I had bandages on my arms. I was looking rough. But she laid on my chest, and she laughed and giggled, and she played with my nose, and I'm like, how is she not terrified? And then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, I look like every single toy she's ever been given. Short arms, right? Short legs, fuzzy chest. To her, I'm just a teddy bear. And then 3 or 4 weeks into my recovery, I found a mentor, if you will. A guy walked into my room with no legs and no arms, with prosthetics, and he walked in, and first thing he said was, "Hey man, welcome to the club." I said, "I don't want to be in your club." He said, "Kind of late now, don't you think?" I said, "Yeah, I guess so." He said, "My name's Todd Nicely. I'm a retired Marine corporal, and I'm the second ever quadruple amputee, and you are the fourth. And what happened to you is unfair to you, but let me tell you something. You're not a bad person. This stuff happens, but you are in the absolute best place for you. You will learn how to do everything you think you can't. You will walk again. You will feed yourself with a prosthetic hand. You will dress yourself. You will even drive." And he said, "I flew in from Missouri just to let you know that." And 2 things went through my head that day. Number 1, I'm not alone in this. Someone else has already done it. And number 2, recovery is probably super easy because he's a Marine. He figured it out. So I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm so jealous of their uniforms. Oh, and their marketing is so good. It's that new commercial, "You don't get to be a Marine. You earn it." Oh. So ladies and gentlemen, I know you guys as dentists and in the industry, you deal with a lot of like laughing gas or things like that. So when I was in my worst state, I was in so much pain that they didn't know what they were going to do with me. And the only thing they could think of was to do a new crazy experiment of ketamine. And because I was in such bad pain, they were like, he's either going to overdose on the medication that we're giving him, the oxys, the Lodids, or he's going to be in chronic pain forever, so we're going to try something new. So they gave me a ketamine coma, and the ketamine coma was to reset my brain to think where my nerves end is where they actually end. So I stopped having my nerves try to find my feet and my hands, because it felt like my feet were on fire, and my fingernails were getting ripped off, and spikes getting driven through my heels. It was bad. So they gave me this ketamine coma. For 5 days, they gave me 600 milligrams an hour. And after that ketamine coma, I woke up and I hallucinated for 10 days. It was a wild ride. but it got my pain in control. And once my pain was in control, it's time for me to start my recovery. And I was so weak at one point, I couldn't roll right or left or sit up by myself because I lost all my core muscles. I lost 110 pounds in 7 days. But my first workout that I ever did was actually I had to sit and balance on a bench and hit a balloon. So for my first workout that I ever did, I sat there and I hit a balloon. And it was to keep me from falling over and to make sure I could regain my stomach muscles and my core muscles. Eventually, though, I got strong enough where I was actually using machines. I was using cable machines, getting stronger and building myself up. And then 5 weeks into my recovery, I actually got to put my hand down for the very first time. And the first thing I did was I drank a Gatorade by myself. And then that night, I went to dinner with my wife and my parents at the Fisher House, and I got to feed myself my very own food. And after I got good with my hand, eventually I was like helping feed my daughter and do things around the house. I even one time for Instagram, I did laundry. Pretty big deal. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, the most important hand that I own is actually on the screen right now. It's called a Greifer. And this hand sits in a Crown Royal bag on the top shelf of my closet. And you're probably like, well, if it's so important, why is it on the top shelf of a closet? Well, because it has this really cool thing where it closes 25 pounds of pressure and then it stops. Then I can squeeze again and it goes 35 pounds of pressure. And that's important. My daughter's 13, she's not dating yet, but when she does, think about this, right? Here comes Johnny. He's like, hey, bro. I'm like, we're not on that level, Johnny. 25 pounds of pressure. He's like, dude, that hurts. I'm like, again, we're not friends. Crunch, I break his hand, right? He's crying, let me go. I don't. I pull him in closer. Hey, Johnny, guess what? He's like, I don't know what. And I'm like, no fingerprints, bro. Yeah. Get out of my house. But people wonder how my hand works. So I need a volunteer named Chris Hammond to come up here on stage real quick. Is Chris Hammond here to come help me on stage? Oh, there he is. Come on, high school. Come on up here. I was told I was told that you have a loved one with a prosthetic, so you know how these work.
Yes.
Do you?
No.
Are you serious?
Yes, I don't.
That's embarrassing. We'll get through it. Okay, hop on this side for me. You're in my Vanna White. So how?
The second time I've been embarrassed on stage at this meeting.
You know what? Very handsome, like me. You're a winner. And remember, if you're having a bad day, you got arms and legs. So rub it in. So here's the thing. So how my hand? I'm just kidding. How my hand works is off muscle flexors in my forearm. You really don't have a loved one with one of these? I thought they said your aunt or your uncle had one. It doesn't matter. You know what the point is? It doesn't matter. We're going through this. I want you to make a fist, and I want you to rev the engine on a moped. I knew you rode mopeds. I knew it. So how this works is off muscle flexes in my forearm. I have a topical sensor. See that little circle on my arm? Point that out to the crowd, little hole. No, little, yeah. It tickles. Quit it. I'm married. So how this works is off muscle flex. So rev the engine on a moped slow. Flex the muscle slow. Rev the engine slow. I honestly can't hear how fast you're going, so I can't tell if it's slow or fast, Chris. Well, for the crowd, not me. This is your audience now. So wee for the crowd. Yep. So when I flex my muscle slow, it opens. Now hammer down that Vespa. Get after it. Well, you got to flex. You got to flex though. You can't have it flexed already. Put it down, then hammer down. Whoa, easy, big dog. Easy now. So when I flex my muscle fast, it'll rotate around to the left. Keep flexing until I stop flexing it. Now flex your hand up. Well, yeah, flex it down. That's where we're going. But no, I want you to go down. Flex it down now. You did the right. You just jumped ahead. No, that's up. Yeah. So there's a muscle down here. Yeah. Right. See that one? Yeah. Little circle. Point to the crowd so they see it. You got to point the hole to the crowd so they. So when I flex down slow, it closes, and down fast rotates. Now I've been messing with him all day because I knew he was going to come up here because I thought he had a loved one that understood how these work. So that's embarrassing on me. But the other part about my hand is the dumbest thing ever because the government wants to try new things at Walter Reed. So they said, hey, put some technology into this. So my hand's supposed to be voice activated. It makes no sense whatsoever. I can say open, close, turn. It only goes to the left and stop. Hit this button here. Blue lights come on. So now I'm saying close, and it will close. And I say open. And I say turn. It only goes to the left. I say the magic word of stop, and then it is supposed to stop. Stop. I hate this technology. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know why stop. I don't even know why I show you guys this, honestly. Like, it's embarrassing for me. But whatever. It's kind of neat. So go ahead, Chris. Give it a close. I just said it. Try open.
Open.
A little bit louder.
Open.
No, so it's baritone soprano based. So like it can pick up on, so like masculine, like think Batman.
Open.
No, puff your chest. Like, listen, like open, like that.
Open.
Close. You were like you kind of broke it up. Like,
Open.
nope, you too long. Ask it. Don't. You're asking. I need you to tell it. Try. You know
Open.
what? You know what? Let's try turn. Like turn. Like turn. Like
Turn.
Like turn.
Turn.
I gotta be honest with you. At one point, you're gonna realize I'm saying it too. You know, what I just realized it's not voice activated. That's a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause, my Vanna White. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
You're awesome.
Here's the stipulation, okay? When I ask for a volunteer, I'm not gonna say who gave me a name. I say someone that everyone knows, loved by everybody, great sense of humor, not gonna punch me. First name. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even like there was a group of people that he wanted to choose, or that they wanted to choose from. Sorry, I won't tell him it's you. He just he knew the name. This is the guy. So here's the thing. My hand works off muscle flexes in my forearm. I'm very thankful to have it. Now, I also, at 7 weeks and 4 days, decided it was time for me to start walking again. So I strapped my legs on for the very first time, and it was painful. My blood was pulsating through my legs. It was like my feet were in cement, and I was trying to walk around the Military Advanced Training Center. But eventually I got strong enough, and I got good enough to walk with crutches. Then I walked without crutches, got taller on some taller legs that they gave me. And every day I was getting stronger. Every day I was trying to figure out how to go up and down curb steps, how to make it in a world with prosthetics. At Walter Reed, I was 25. I was one of the old guys. And I became a mentor, and I'd work out with people. And my workouts were 4 hours of occupational therapy and 4 hours of physical therapy a day, because they gave me the chance to do that. Eventually, I got the legs I'm wearing now. They're called X3s. And these legs I'm wearing now are cool. They're microprocessing computers. They have hydraulic brakes. They're waterproof. They're Bluetooth even. And I got strong enough to the point where I got to go back to Fort Bragg, got to walk on the parade field, see my guys when they got back from deployment, and say, thank you so much for your hard work and your dedication and believing that you could save me, because you made it possible for me to walk out here today. And by the end of it, just like Forrest Gump, thank you, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You know, it's funny, I cut this story out a couple years ago, but when I was in the hospital on my birthday and I woke up, I didn't want to call my wife or my parents, but I called my unit. I called my unit and I told them thanks, and I told them I would see them when they got home, and I was able to make that happen. And that was a video of me going there and saying, welcome home, guys. So I don't know, I'm just sharing that today. That's not part of my normal thing anymore. But during my recovery, I had to set some goals, right? I wanted to have a hand, I wanted to walk. When I met Todd Nicely, he brought some guys, some firemen in from New York City, part of the Tunnels to Towers 5K they put on, Steven Stiller Foundation. They said, hey, we want you to come be a part of this. I said, yeah, I'm going to walk it. They said, well, it's in 5 months. You probably won't even have legs by then. I said, yeah, I'm going to walk it. So I went up there and I said, let me just see how far I can get. I had my legs for like 1 week. I walked through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and as I was walking, I was like, let me just see how far I can get. My back's starting to kill me. I'm starting to sweat pretty bad. I'm like, I'm going to take a seat. You know, I did enough. When I come out of this tunnel, I'm going to sit down for the last mile. But I came out of that tunnel, and there was actually 343 first responders with the banners of the names and the faces of those that perished on 9/11. And I thought, if those brave men and women could give anything, or give everything, until they ultimately perished in the ruin of the rubble on 9/11, I should be able to finish this 5K. So I finished the 5K. I was bleeding in my line, and my back was killing me. I was sore. But I got invited up on stage. There was a band playing. You guys ever heard of Lieutenant Dan Band? I won't make it weird for you, but Gary Sinise is a personal friend of mine. I could FaceTime him right now even, probably. He might even answer. Big deal. But they invited me up on stage. So I go up on stage, and the crowd's going, like 5,000 people. Crowd's going wild. I'm waving at them. My pain all of a sudden is gone from the 5K, but my crutch is in my left hand, so I'm like waving with my right arm. I'm hoping they know what I'm doing. Like, be my friend. But you never know if they understood. But across stage, I didn't see it was the cord for the audio and the visuals, and my toe caught it, and down I went, pow, in front of everybody. The whole crowd went silent, like, oh. It was embarrassing. Luckily, though, there's a 6'7", just knight in shining armor named Brian, the bodyguard. He picks me up under my armpits like a rag doll, like, whoop, up I go. Like a little kid, my legs are just kind of like swinging, you know. He has no idea how my legs work, so he sets me down abruptly. The crowd's going wild, like, he saved him, he picked him up. And my legs just crumple again, and down I go. Whole crowd once again, you can imagine, oh. So Brian, not deterred by this, picks me up again. The gentleman picks me up again, whoop, up I go. My wife's in a half circle, run around like, don't drop him, don't drop him. He gets me down, my legs get set, my crutch gets set. He's like, are you good? I'm like, Brian, I'm good. He steps back, the crowd erupts in a huge cheer. And Brian's like, hey man, we did it. And this ogre smacks me on the back. Pow! And just, down, yeah. I know. Whole crowd, they started yelling mercy. Stood up, I yelled freedom. Real Braveheart moment. So, you see, ladies and gentlemen, at Walter Reed, I was given the chance to do a lot of really cool things. During my recovery process, the hospital took us on these trips, and I learned how to go kayaking and canoeing. I went on a horseback ride, which I'll never do again, but I did it. They put me on I had a Velcro saddle. Like I was just like a girdle of Velcro, like, yeah. I was holding on to the reins with my, like this hand looks like a hand, but it's like my two fingers and it's like a metal claw, right? Underneath this hand. I was holding on with my dainty grip, and I was like, isn't this fun? I'm like, I'll never get me off. Please get me off of this horse. I'll never do that again. Snowboarding, right? Mono skiing. I was able to go downhill mountain biking, which is really cool. I went to Mount Crested Butte in Colorado, and they strapped me into the seat with a big, big strap. They cinched me down into it. They took my prosthetics and they duct taped them to the handlebars. And like I couldn't get out if I wanted. They put a helmet on my head, and I said, now what? And they said, don't die. And I said, huh? And but I was given the chance to realize that life was still possible after injury. That I could still do things with my family. I mean, I had a full plan of teaching my daughter how to play soccer and softball and basketball, and that was taken from me, right? But I could still do things. And my wife, because of my injuries, I need a non-medical assistant. My wife got to go with me. And she got to experience this part of joy and adrenaline rush and excitement about what's possible, and understand, that we were able to heal together at the time, because make no mistake about it, my injuries affected her life drastically. And after we went on that trip, we got thinking, what are we going to do? You see, I lost a chance to serve my country, greatest job I ever had. And my wife and I thought, well, what can we do? So we thought, we can still serve people. So we started a nonprofit. We were shown so much love and support from other nonprofits, we thought, let's see what we can do. We started the Travis Mills Foundation. Real catchy title. I don't even know where I got it, but we started the Travis Mills Foundation, and we decided we wanted to bring families to Maine that have been through situations like Kelsey and I, right? Physical injuries due to service, and show them how to do things adaptively. And we did it just off of a whim, see what we can do, real grassroots start. And we brought these families out. You got Josh Wetzel and Andrew Smith there in the orange and blue shirt, both double-leg amputees. You got myself and my buddy Taylor. He's the 5th and final quadruple amputee. And the guy showed up at the door, was like knocking. We're like, can we help you? He's like, yeah, can I come in? We're like, no. He goes, yeah, but I'm missing a leg. And we said, no one cares about your paper cut. Like, go home. Nah, it's true, Molly. Great guy. So we brought these families out, and we showed them that life is possible. It went so well that we decided we were going to buy a facility. We bought Elizabeth Arden's old estate. She built in 1929. It was in really bad disrepair, but we went ahead and fixed it up for 2 years to the tune of like $3 million. And with having no idea what we were doing and just finding our way through, we were able to open the doors officially to the Travis Mills Foundation Veterans Retreat in 2017. Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. And our whole goal is we bring out families who've been through physical injuries due to service and show them life is possible, to get off the sidelines. We thought this was going to be a summertime thing only, but then we realized that we can do this all year round, so we put a big addition on. We have an indoor swimming pool with a fitness center, and we have families and caregivers and a couple other programs, 42 weeks out of 52 in person. But our whole goal is to let people know that no matter what happened to them, we're here for them. We can help them get over, pass through, around, under, any which way, any situation they're facing. They can do it with their family with a smile on their face. We have people in wheelchairs doing a high-rise ropes course. Mike Rowe did a whole TV show on it from Dirty Jobs, but it's called Returning the Favor. We have spouses that come and they get the chance to actually relax because their loved one that's physically injured is at a barrier-free place that is set up to cater to any and all needs that they might have. And we have some really cool and tremendous stories. We had a gentleman that came that was a triple amputee, burned up pretty bad, and we were doing archery, and he said, I can't do archery. And we said, yeah, you can. And we actually were able to stitch and sew a harness for his shoulder, and by the end of the week, he had his own harness and own setup to do archery and was able to try out for the Paralympians now because he does it so much and loves it. So we're able to change lives, and having kids come that are in the same situation, that see other parents that have the same, injuries, if you will, and situation that they live in every day, it's just a tremendous thing that we're able to do. And we're able to do that because people support us. Now, You might not know someone like me in your everyday life, missing arms and legs, and that's okay. But the Travis Mills Foundation has expanded to the point where now we have a really cool program called Warrior Path. And Warrior Path is a post-traumatic stress program. It's one of the best in the nation we partner with. And it's free to any service member and first responder. So if you have a loved one in your family or your friend group that's going through any post-traumatic stress, that's suffering, send them to the Travis Mills Foundation website, travismillsfoundation.org. Tell them to get involved with the Warrior Path program or the Struggle Well program. And we became one of the chapters for them because we're able to actually change people's outlook on life. I'm not telling you that you need the help if you don't want it, but I will say that it's fully funded, already covered program that has prevented so many suicides and saved so many families because we're able to get to do the work that we do. As a president and founder, I've never taken a dollar. I never will. It's not about me. But we're fortunate to have the ability to do the work that we do because life is an absolute opportunity. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Life is an opportunity. I take every chance I can. So I own a few businesses. I have a restaurant I started with some friends recently. I have a brewery that's not even logoed up there. We just opened it like last summer. Podcast. I did a clothing line, Rebel for Good clothing line. My daughter's going to have her own collection. She's pretty fired up about it. And I own a marina. When I say I own a marina, what happened was I got offered to buy a marina. And then my wife, my buddy's wife, looked at us and said, "You idiots better not buy this marina." We drank whiskey that night. We bought a marina. But again, this isn't about like, look at me all, I'm just in a ton of debt, so whatever. The point is, life is such an opportunity that even a guy with no arms, no legs can go out there and still thrive in the nation that we live in that we call home. I've written 2 books. I have Tough as They Come. My first one is a memoir, New York Times bestseller. My second one, Bounce Back. The thing I learned when I went around and I spoke to, when I go around and I speak to audiences is that we have so much more in common than we think. People might look at me and say, "Oh, I have this going on, but nothing like what you're going through." And it's just not true. Your biggest problem is your biggest problem. It's real and it's relevant. So what I did was I took stories of people that I had met on the road, divorce, cancer, house fire, post-traumatic stress from the Marines in combat, and I took their stories and I showed how they were at the very bottom and how they were able to bounce back and what got them through that. Because when people ask me, "How do you do it, Travis?" and I was just like, "Well, I have to." It wasn't a good enough answer, so I decided to write a book about it. So I think there's some copies out there for people, but that's my book. Jocko Willink, if you guys know who that is, he's my jiu-jitsu partner. I tap that fool out all the time, but he wrote the foreword in that one. I also have a documentary on Max. If you guys want more Travis Mills in your life, just type in "Hi, I'm Travis." Chip and Joanna Gaines did it from Fixer Upper, and I'm very proud of how it came out. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, the real meat and potatoes of how I'm able to keep going forward is because life's all about perspective. I realized the price that I could have actually paid. Brandon Goodine and Francis Gene Phillips IV are 2 guys on the screen right now. Brandon Goodine was 19 when he got blown up. He died, and he left behind a 7-month-old little girl who was only going to know stories and pictures of her father. Francis Gene Phillips IV was one of my absolute best friends in life. We did 2 deployments together. Me, him, and our buddy Justin were pretty much inseparable. And on his 3rd deployment, his truck hit a bomb, and everybody in the truck that day died. He left behind his 4-year-old daughter, Sophia, his wife, Christine, his family, his friends. And I don't tell you this to make you sad or angry or upset, I promise. I tell you this because I realize how fortunate I truly am. You see, I talked to his mom. She'd give anything for one more conversation with Frankie. I talk to my parents every day. His wife would give anything to have him in my situation. She's told me that. And she's remarried, has kids, she's doing well, but she would give anything to have him in my situation to still be here. And his daughter, who's thriving, she's a dancer, she does great. She would give anything for a daddy-daughter dance. My daughter and me are best friends. Literally best friends. There's also the doctors and nurses that went in my recovery. I got to meet 6 of the 9 doctors out in California, 4 of them here on stage. And they kept emailing my team weeks in advance of the event that I was doing. They kept saying, "Is Travis mad? Is he angry? Is he upset? Because he thinks it's a curse, not a blessing." And you see, I finally broke down and I said, "Guys, thank you so much for believing that my life mattered." You see, they could have loosened up one tourniquet and I would have bled out in 2 minutes, maybe 3, and they could have called it. But they worked on me for 14 hours initially to make sure that I got to go home and be there for my family. My wife and I now are just about to celebrate our 17th year of marriage. Yeah, thanks. She's so lucky to have me, I know. No. My daughter and I have a cool story. We learned how to walk together. Not a lot of people can say that. She was a little better at first. I kept pushing her down until I caught up, but because of their actions and their ability to keep pushing forward, I'm able to live out the slogan of never give up and never quit. I'm able to keep going. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. I've been so fortunate in life after my injury. People usually get embarrassed to ask me questions and talk to me or don't want to say the wrong thing. So when I get done and I go out here in the hallway and I get the chance to meet and take pictures and talk with everybody, I want you guys not to feel embarrassed and not worry about what you're going to ask me. So I'm going to start you off with the biggest question you probably have. I still got it. It still works. There's the proof. My wife and I are fortunate. We have our son, Dax. As you can see, he's named after the medics that saved my life, Daniel and Alexander. We figured they made it possible for me to get through that day with their quick action, saved my life. We might as well name our son after him. And, you know, I, over the years, have realized that, you know, I didn't serve any more than anybody else. People want to put me on a pedestal, and I hope that you don't put me on a pedestal, because if you did serve Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, and those well-dressed Marines, thank you for your service. I did nothing special. Absolutely. And we live in such a great nation that one of the absolute best days I've ever had, I want to tell you guys, it's going to seem so simple and easy, but it's one of the best days I had. When I moved to Maine, and I told you guys I live in Maine because my wife was from there, and what happened was I said, hey, let's go to let's go to Michigan, and she said no. And I said, are you sure? Because we should go to Michigan. And she took my arms and legs away, and she put me in the closet until I agreed to move to Maine. But we went to Maine, and my wife was going to college, and I just got back from a speaking trip in Oklahoma, and it was on April 13th, and she made me my favorite dinner, ribeye steak, potatoes, and asparagus. And she said, hey, this is your birthday dinner, because tomorrow night, for your birthday, I have college. I have to go to school. I have a class. I said, yeah, no problem. So on my birthday, Chloe and I jumped in my truck, drove to Texas Roadhouse, walked in holding hands, sat down, fiddled around with our food just to get to the dessert. We ate our dessert. She was 4 years old, right? Ate our dessert, paid, we left, got in the truck, buckled her in, drove back to the house. I gave her a bath, and I put her to bed before my wife got home from school. That is such an amazing world that we live in, I have to say, because a guy with no arms and legs wondering why he didn't die is able to take his daughter to dinner, give her a bath, and put her to bed all by himself because of the prosthetic advancements in the world and the nation that takes care of me. I mean, I can't be more blessed and thankful. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, there are two life lessons that I live by. The first life lesson that I live by is don't dwell on the past. Just reminisce it. I used to sit in my hospital bed, and I'd hope and I wish and pray this never happened. I close my eyes, and I think, when I open my eyes, I'm going to be back in Afghanistan on my base with my guys, and this is all going to be over. This nightmare is going to be gone. Well, then I'd open my eyes, and I was still sitting in a hospital bed with no arms, no legs. So I realized early on in my recovery, stop dwelling on it. It's never going to change, so you might as well make the most out of it. I had 24 years with arms and legs, basically 25, that were absolutely incredible. I had one bad day at work, and I've had going on 13 years now that have been absolutely incredible as well. The next thing I tell everybody is you can't always control your situation, but you can always control your attitude. My situation doesn't change, ladies and gentlemen. I wake up in my house in Maine. I jump from my bed to my wheelchair. I get my arm off the charger. That's what the blue lights were, Chris. It's fully charged. I jump to my wheelchair. I go get my coffee. My wife gets up. She comes and gets her coffee. My kids get up. And we go about our day. My situation doesn't change. My attitude is always going to be positive, grateful, and thankful to still be here. I also got one of the coolest jobs in the world. I get to hang out with all you wonderful people, so, I mean, life's not so bad, right? But, ladies and gentlemen, for the work that you do, the changes that you make in life, I mean, I think that a smile and teeth, it's one of the biggest things. My kids have the most expensive toothbrushes out there because I'm like, hey, your teeth matter. So, like, keep up the great work. I just want to say thank you so much. Congratulations on your 30th year. I mean, that's impressive. This doesn't happen overnight, obviously. I know the work that you and your staff have put in, and I just want to thank you guys so much for having me, and hope you guys live out the slogan of never give up and never quit. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you for having me. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you.